Today on Blue World, Jonathan travels to Oman looking for a rare and exotic shark. Then a wild goosefish chase in search of a really weird fish. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
I have filmed sharks all over the world. Whale sharks in the Galapagos, tiger sharks in the Caribbean, white sharks in Mexico, big sharks, little sharks, tropical sharks, cold water sharks, bottom-dwelling sharks. I love sharks and shark behavior, and I'm always looking for a new shark species to film. So, on our shark search, cameraman Bill and I are heading all the way to the Middle East to dive in the Sultanate of Oman. I've come all the way to Oman to film a unique animal called the zebra shark. Oman is a beautiful country with deserts and mountains meeting the greenish blue water of the Gulf of Oman, part of the Western Indian Ocean. The water here is tropical in temperature, but filled with plankton due to upwelling nutrients. As a result, the water is not as clear as you might expect for such a tropical place, but absolutely filled with fish. Cameraman Bill and I arrive at the very fashionable Civil Aviation Club just outside Oman's capital of Muscat. We'll be staying here for the week, right on the ocean. And it's really convenient because the dive shop is located right on the property. As we discover at breakfast the first morning, we're the only ones here because it's the middle of the summer. Here we are in our morning breakfast at the Civil Aviation Club.
Toast. We have the entire place to ourselves, which is quite nice.
We're the only guests.
Yeah, because no one shows up in July.
Nobody comes here in July. So, it's 8 in the morning in Oman in July, which is obviously the hot season. And it's over 100 degrees out and the humidity is stifling. I head over to the dive shop and grab my gear to load the boat. And it's really easy because the boat is on dry land. I'm experimenting with a new camera system, ultra lightweight and travel friendly. Kind of looks like an octopus though. Soon we're on our way. It seems weird to be on the boat while they put it in the water, but they have no dock here, so this is the best way. I don't think the salt water is good for the tractor, though. Once we're free of the boat trailer, the captain fires up the engines and we're on our way to the dive site. This area can be extremely windy, making the sea conditions unsafe, so we're lucky that today it's really calm. We make good time for the 20-kilometer run out to the Omani Islands, one of the best places to dive in Oman. Omani is a small group of desert islands surrounded by healthy reefs and protected by the Oman government as a nature reserve. I'm excited to get in the water and check out what Oman has to offer. Well, it's time to go try to find a zebra shark. The water is hot near the surface, but it quickly cools down as I sink below 30 feet. And it's chock full of fish, like this big school of black spot snapper. Due to upwelling, there is plenty of cool, nutrient-rich water here as I descend. This deeper layer is green with plankton and thick with fish. At times, the schools of Fusilier block out the sun. But it's the reefs that really catch my attention. While the underwater landscape is predominantly hard coral, there are some magnificent, colorful, soft corals about. They have that classic tropical Indo-Pacific look. And yet nearby, there are bright blue gorgonians that look like they were transplanted from temperate waters. There's a species of crown of thorns sea star I've never seen before. A big fat pincushion star. A pair of anemone fish frolicking in a magnificent anemone that has fluorescing tentacles. Laced moray eels seem to be living in every hole in the reef. A nudibranch, basically a poisonous snail without a shell, makes its way along the reef. A pair of tiny shrimp inhabit a branched anemone. A sea turtle is munching away on a soft layer of corallimorphs that have encrusted the reef. She doesn't seem to mind my camera one bit as I move in for a close-up. I might have stayed with this wonderfully cooperative animal for the whole dive, except Bill calls me over to see something else. He has discovered a pair of cuttlefish. Cuttlefish are intelligent and curious. They often approach divers without fear for a closer look. But this pair seems more like they're holding their ground as we move in closer. It really seems like they might be up to something that we just interrupted. With my camera barely more than a foot away, the cuttlefish stay right in their spot over the reef. After a few minutes, they decide to trust me and go back to what they were doing. And now I get it. The male is standing guard while the female deposits her eggs in a safe place under some coral. This is a spectacular behavior I've never before witnessed. The male keeps a close eye on me, but I guess they've decided that Bill and I aren't a threat. The egg depositing continues in earnest, and I feel truly honored that this pair of cuttlefish will allow us to get a glimpse into their lives. We leave the cuttlefish to their efforts and move on. As we swim out into a deeper, rubbly area, we find our quarry, a zebra shark resting on the bottom. But as we sneak in closer, the shark gets spooked. We had an amazing dive and we found a zebra shark, so we know they're around. Now we just need to find a cooperative one. The next morning we're up bright and early before it gets too hot. Back at the Demaniat Islands, we jump in the water and head over to the area we saw the shark yesterday. Along the way, I find some things to film. But then I see a zebra shark resting on the bottom and approach slowly. As I get closer, I can see the distinct spots that look like a leopard pattern. In fact, in many places this is known as a leopard shark. If the zebra shark looks a little familiar, it's probably because of the 5 ridges running the length of its body, which make it look like a small whale shark. Indeed, they are related to each other, but instead of swimming in open water looking for plankton, the zebra shark rests on the bottom during the day and hunts for mollusks and crustaceans at night. One thing I immediately notice about this shark is that it appears to have only 4 gill slits. Given that all sharks have between 5 and 7 gill slits, with the vast majority having 5, something doesn't seem right. So I sneak around to the other side and I can see the explanation. On zebra sharks, the last 2 gill slits are actually so close together that you can barely tell they aren't a single gill slit. When a zebra shark swims, you can see that it has a really long, flexible tail. Most sharks don't have a tail like this. My guess is that the long tail allows the shark to swim backwards and wiggle out of holes and crevices in the reef where it hunts. Having finally found the zebra shark, it's time to head back to the boat. Mission accomplished.
That zebra shark was amazing. What I couldn't believe is just how much it was willing to tolerate me. I mean, I got right up close with my video lights and I just settled down and I was filming and it didn't even mind. It was just sitting there, it was like totally chill. That was the most cooperative shark ever.
After an exciting day filming zebra sharks, we head back to the Civil Aviation Club and enjoy a beautiful Omani sunset over the Indian Ocean. And once again I realize how lucky I am to be able to explore the far reaches of the blue world. If there's one thing I love, it's weird fish. I've traveled all over the world to see frogfish, seahorses, and batfish. But today, I've come to the New England Aquarium to meet one of the weirdest and coolest fish in the world. I'm meeting up with cameraman Bill, part-time Blue World cameraman, and full-time professional aquarist. Hey Bill, thanks for having me back to the aquarium to check out this amazing fish.
Absolutely, it's always glad to have you back.
I just love goosefish. I think this is one of the coolest fish in the world.
They are one of my favorites because they are like an amazing animal with amazing abilities, and they're such an odd looking fish.
So the basic morphology, flattened and camouflaged, and they lay in the sand, and they're ambush predators, and they've got a lure.
Right.
And so they're just trying to lure the prey in. And what kind of prey would they lure in?
Generally speaking, they kind of go for fish, but they could also go for squid or anything else like that. But the larger ones, so you can see this is a kind of a small one, they can get much bigger. And the larger ones have been known to take down ducks and geese.
So in really shallow water.
Right.
Interesting.
A lot of ducks and geese dive down to find fish or chase after and pick off things. So when they dive down, these guys in the shallows, and they just take them down whole.
And their mouth is just full of needle-like teeth. It's like you're not getting out of that mouth.
The cool thing about their teeth also is all their teeth are angled inwards. So that way when something does get in, there's no backing out of it. It's just one way to go, and that's down in.
It's going down the hatch. So this one's only about 1 foot long, but how big do they get?
They can get up close to 5 feet long. The heads can be about 2 feet wide. They can be very big fish, very big mouths.
So you can eat a really big bite.
Yeah.
Very neat. And how do you feed these guys?
Because they're down here in the tank, but I have take a little fish on a stick, and I'll dangle it in the water kind of above them. And once they start luring for the fish, then I kind of drag it over top of them and kind of wiggle it around like I'm a live fish. And boom, they open their mouths real quick, just take it whole.
Wow.
And there we go.
Well, In 29 years of diving, I've only seen one goosefish, and it was about 25 years ago. But I heard a rumor that they saw 3 of them in the sand around a shipwreck out in Stellwagen Bank last week. So I think it's our opportunity.
Absolutely. I would love to see these things in the wild, so I am absolutely game to go check this out.
Well, let's go diving.
All right.
3 weeks later. Well, it's the moment of truth. I am super excited, but also really nervous. I hope we can find this fish. Hey, Matt. In Gloucester, Massachusetts, I meet up with Captain Matt Marcoux, who runs the Daybreaker dive boat. I'm joining a dive trip to Stellwagen Bank. We're heading to the wreck of the Patriot, a fishing boat which capsized and sank in 2009, about 15 miles southeast of Gloucester. We leave Gloucester Harbor on a beautiful summer morning. We have a 90-minute ride to the wreck, so cameraman Bill and I use the time to get our gear set up and ready. When we reach the wreck, mate Michael McDonald and his dive buddy are the first ones in the water. They have to set the anchor before the rest of the divers go in. Once everything's all set, they send up a marker with good news. They found some! Bill and I are wearing dry suits for this dive.
This is my favorite part of putting on a dry suit, right here. Oh, yeah. The seal's starting to get a little worn out, so it's not that painful. Hopefully it won't leak.
Even though the surface water is up to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the wreck is deep. On the bottom, we will be working in 45-degree water. That's definitely cold. The sea is flat calm as we hit the ocean. With our cameras in hand, Bill and I make the long descent down the anchor line to the wreck. We pass through a thermocline, the boundary layer between different temperatures. The water is swirly and makes our vision blurry. We emerge below it into icy cold water, but at least the visibility is better. Like most wrecks, the Patriot has become an impressive artificial reef. This boat, which used to be used for capturing fish, is now a haven for fish. It's overgrown with hydroids, sponges, and anemones, and harbors thousands of pollock, cunner, and cod. Where there is a reef attracting marine life, nearby there are always predators hoping to take advantage of the situation. Out on the sand, sculpin, hoping for some small fish to come by. The sculpin, however, are both hunter and hunted. They're not the only predators lurking around the wreck. Even with the bright light supplied by my camera system, the goosefish is exceptionally well hidden in the shallow depression it dug in the sandy seafloor. It waits patiently for prey to come close. Fleshy tassels all around the edges of its body help to disguise its shape. Even the mouth has camouflage between the teeth. It lays perfectly still, breathing only once or twice a minute, exhaling through concealed gill openings. All it takes is for one fish to come within striking distance. As they get closer, the goosefish begins flicking its lure. This is a fish going fishing. A hake comes close, wandering around the seafloor while using its chemosensitive whiskers, called barbels, to hunt for food and sense predators. The goosefish doesn't move a muscle. On the seafloor, a hake is venturing dangerously close to the mouth of a goosefish. That was a close one. As I continue to film, other potential meals approach the goosefish. It finally makes a move. But that hake is just too big for this small goosefish. Knowing its position has been revealed, or perhaps in response to an annoying guy with a camera, the goosefish decides to relocate. It's not exactly a graceful swimmer. I could spend hours down here filming goosefish, but at this depth, over 100 feet, we have very limited time before decompression obligations start to add up. So it's time for Bill and I to head back up the anchor line. At 15 feet, we spend a few minutes doing a safety decompression stop in the warm surface water and celebrate having finally filmed a goosefish in its natural habitat. I do love weird fish. The goosefish is flat and camouflaged like a tasseled wobbegong shark, but it has a lure like a frogfish. It has concealed gill openings like a batfish, but uses sand for camouflage like a flounder. The goosefish truly may be the weirdest and coolest fish in the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan works on an underwater coral farm. But first, he goes hunting for megalodon shark teeth. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The great white shark is one of the most fearsome predators in the sea. Reaching the size of a large car, the great white is a formidable shark. But a few million years ago, there was a much larger, much more powerful shark roaming the world's oceans, the megalodon. A present-day great white shark reaches 21 feet in length. That's about 7 meters. It dwarfs a human. But the megalodon would dwarf a great white. Experts think they reached 20 meters. which would make them the largest sharks of all time. In the distant past, when the Earth was hotter than it is today and the sea levels were higher, Megalodon roamed the oceans feeding on whales. Like modern sharks, they had a never-ending supply of teeth. When they chomped a whale, teeth would break off and sink down to the mud in the sea floor. Buried in mud under pressure, the teeth slowly turned into fossils as minerals impregnated them. As the planet cooled down, sea levels fell. Megalodon went extinct. As the oceans receded, untold millions of fossilized shark teeth in the sediment washed into rivers. This particular river, the Cooper River in South Carolina, is one of the world's most famous places to find megalodon teeth. Cameraman Tim, field producer Al Baza, and I fly to Charleston, where the Cooper River empties into the ocean. We're here to meet Alan DeVere, a world authority on finding fossilized shark teeth. Just after sunrise, Alan is putting his boat in the water at the local boat ramp. We're on a double mission, to make a segment about finding fossil megalodon teeth, but hopefully also to find some of our own. The boat is a little cramped with all our camera and scuba gear, but we'll make it work. We have a 30-minute run to the dive site, so I used the opportunity to ask Alan about shark tooth diving. Why do people collect these things?
Something about a giant shark, I think, and being able just to hold that tooth in your hand. You can figure 10 foot of shark for every inch of tooth. So a 6-inch tooth would have been a shark the size of a school bus. That's almost hard to wrap your head around. As we head upstream and the river gets narrower, I'm noticing not just the color of the water, but the speed of the water. Alan throws the anchor and we're ready for some river diving. With a few last-minute pointers, our team is ready to suit up and hit the water. I have to admit, I'm feeling pretty nervous. This might be the murkiest water I've ever been diving in.
I'll make it go right straight to the bottom like a brick. My light for hands-free fossil hunting, and then I've got this implement, kind of a rake thing, not only for raking but also for holding on. It's my anchor. It's like pea soup. I literally can't see my feet.
I pull myself down the anchor line against the current. It's really hard work. The water is brownish yellow and it gets darker with every pull on the rope. I can't see the surface or the bottom. The rope is my only reference. It doesn't take long to reach the anchor. Down here, it's pitch black. If I turn my light off, I can't see anything. I'm waiting here for cameraman Tim. Tim arrives shortly and we set off upstream to find the gravel bed where the shark teeth are supposed to be. We can barely see each other. We're using old screwdrivers to anchor ourselves into the bottom and crawl against the flow of the river. We finally reach the gravel bed and start looking for teeth. I see lots of rocks and some shells, but so far no shark's teeth. But I'm not really sure what to look for. Tim and I need to stay within an arm's reach distance or we will lose each other in the murk. The diving is really spooky. When I see my first tooth, I realize that they're pretty obvious. There it is, half a tooth sitting right on the bottom. I put it in my bag, and continue on. Bolstered by my newfound success, I decide to try the rake, but it doesn't really help at all. The nice thing about the current is the fact that it will take away any mess I make. So I try waving the top layer away with my hand. It works much better than the rake. Soon I find another tooth fragment. It's half a tooth split right down the middle. After an hour of searching for teeth, Tim and I surface. Neither of us found anything really spectacular, but we got a feel for the process, and I got used to working in the current and limited visibility. It's so nice to see the sun when we surface.
So this is kind of an unusual style of diving. First of all, the current is ripping. We're in a river, and so the water's really moving. So right now I have to hold this rope just to stay by the side of the boat. If I let go, I'll go sailing away. Then the next thing is that the water's kind of like chocolate milk. You can't, here's my fin. Here's my fin. And as I put it underwater, you'll notice that it very quickly goes out of sight. And the fact is that I can't even see my foot underwater. So I would say the viz is about, let me put my hand out. I could just see my hand that far away. It's really murky. So when you're looking for fossils, this light is really important because it's right focused on the bottom, and you have to look at the bottom from like less than a foot away. You just have your face jammed right up on the bottom looking for the fossils. It's challenging, but it's rewarding.
We're off to another spot in the river in our search for megalodon teeth. Everywhere we look, it's beautiful. Next, we suit up for another dive.
And ready? All right, here we go.
It's time to descend back down into the darkness and get serious about finding some shark teeth. It's hard to believe that the visibility could be any worse than it was at the last spot, but it's much worse here. The visibility is measured in inches. Tim and I try to communicate by talking because we can't see each other's hand signals. Talking isn't working either. The good news is that Alan put us right on an excellent gravel bed, and this spot looks very promising for fossils. I immediately find a small but complete tooth. And then another. They're not buried, but sitting right on top. As the current moves silt downstream, new fossils are always being uncovered. I'm using Alan's lucky pink catch bag with the Velcro closure, so I won't lose my precious stash. I find another half tooth. It has perfect serrations. I have to wonder, did this tooth break like this when the shark lost it? Or did it break later and the fossil formed like this? Or did the fossil form and then break in half? We will never know. In the bag it goes. As I wave some silt away, I find a perfect specimen. It's not huge and it has marine growth that I can clean off, but this is a great tooth. In the bag. Fossil hunting requires patience, but it's actually really peaceful and relaxing to just work my way slowly and methodically over the gravel bed. The best technique is to work a grid pattern so you cover every bit of the bed. And my patience pays off with a really big tooth in perfect condition. This one is at least 4, maybe even 5 inches. Nowhere near the size of the biggest one Alan has ever found, which was 6 3/4 inches. When I put this tooth in the bag, I double check to make sure that Velcro is closed. I would cry if I lost this tooth.
Woo! Alan, this was a great spot. I finally got something.
Awesome. Some weight to it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, nice.
We find more than just megalodon teeth. In fact, there are shark teeth even older than that. So, Alan, this is, what did you say the species of shark was?
Angustiden.
And that's
That's
pre-megalodon.
2 generations. Yeah, there's a chub, which is 1 generation, like the father to the meg.
Yeah.
And then Angustiden would be the grandfather to the meg.
And you can tell that because of these little,
Because of those cusps.
these cusps on the side. Wow. So that puts us at how old are we talking on this tooth?
Probably 20 million plus.
20 million years old. 20 million years old. Look at that. And the serrations are still sharp.
Yeah,
That's
this one
what's
too.
amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. Nice find, Al.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice.
That's
And the
Cool.
3 of these were clumped together on the bottom.
So were these 3.
Yeah.
You know, I found the first one and I said, oh, you know, maybe there's some more around here. And so I just
That
looked.
shows you this area hadn't been picked over for you to
be
find them in
clustered.
clusters like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
This one's still got a little bit of serration on it.
It's a
Yeah,
pretty,
I
pretty
like-
tooth.
I like that.
Underwater, I focused on digging, but back on the boat, I can really take some time to check out all the teeth I found. And it's really exciting, like finding them again.
This one's over 4 inches. See the measurements on the bag?
Yep. Oh,
Oh, so that's
we
how
just
you
lost the
measure
sun.
it.
Well, they'll give you a ballpark. You know, it's not perfect because it's a stretchy bag, but
Stretchy bag. It's over 4.
yeah.
Ha ha! Got one over 4. This one's almost 4. Well, I mean, if you measure the other side, it's over 4. There we go.
What you measure.
Always
Measure the
measure the longest side.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Wait.
Want to borrow this bag tonight?
This
Another
one's over
4.
4. I got 3 of them over 4.
On one dive.
Wow.
That's
Pretty cool.
pretty impressive.
In 2 days of diving with Alan on the Cooper River, I find dozens of teeth, including 3 that are larger than 4 inches and 1 that is larger than 5. Not too bad for my first time fossil hunting. The Cooper River has been an awesome experience.
Okay, ready?
The diving is challenging. The visibility is bad. The current is a constant concern. But when you get on a prime gravel bed and you start finding teeth, none of that matters. The hunt for the next tooth is addictive. Sometimes the blue world isn't very blue at all. but I can't wait to come back and do it again. A few years ago, we visited Ken Niedermeyer and the Coral Restoration Foundation in the Florida Keys, where they're farming coral to replenish damaged reefs. Turns out the operation is so successful, they decided to open another one here on Bonaire. Bonaire is a territory of the Netherlands located in the southern Caribbean Sea just off the coast of Venezuela. It's a warm tropical place surrounded by beautiful blue water, known as one of the best scuba diving destinations in the Caribbean. But like much of the Caribbean, the population of some species of shallow water corals here on Bonaire has been damaged in the past. The Coral Restoration Foundation established an operation here on Bonaire, headquartered at Buddy Dive Resort, with a coral farm just offshore. I drop in to meet the director, Francesca Verdis, who explains why they built a coral farm here on Bonaire.
Because even if Bonaire is famous to have probably one of the best and most pristine reef in the Caribbean, our corals are suffering as well, and in particular 2 species of corals. They are endangered, so they're protected at international level, and they are staghorn and elkhorn coral. And so that's why we farm them, because there is the need to restore their population.
Since the operation always needs volunteers to help out, my family and I are volunteering our day to do some work on the underwater farm.
So we clean from the algae, top, bottom, front, and back, and then we have the trunk, all that stuff. And you might have some tags and labels. It's good to clean them as well, so we're always able to read it.
Christine heads to the dive shop for some tanks, because today's work will be underwater. Next, we load our gear on the boat and meet Captain Augusto. Fortunately, Elise remembers the camera. We get some last-minute instructions, and then we're off. Along the way, we assemble our gear. Elise, Liam, Christine, and I hit the water, and we're ready to be a professional underwater farmhand team. Francesca takes us down to the far end of the farm, which consists of plastic trees holding small, living pieces of coral. The trees are anchored into the seafloor and held up by floats. The coral is just tied with fishing line. Eventually, the coral grows over the knot. Each tree is labeled and recorded so the exact age and growth rates can be tracked. But it's a constant battle with algae, which grows readily on the plastic trees and then works its way down the fishing line, trying to smother the coral. Soon, the kids are scrubbing the coral trees clean of algae. If you have to work on a farm, doing it underwater certainly adds some fun. Christine's trying to keep up with the kids, and even the fish join in. Tangs are a kind of fish that survive by foraging for algae. They're critical to protecting the reef from algae on the coral, and so here on the farm, they're a welcome guest. If only the kids would put this much effort into their chores. Liam is exhibiting perfect buoyancy control as he focuses on the job. And after an hour of solid work, we finish when our scuba tanks are getting low and head back to the boat. With a fresh set of scuba tanks, Francesca takes us over to see a section of reef that has been replanted. All of this healthy staghorn coral was planted only 3 years ago. Already it has grown 1 meter tall. individual stands of coral are tracked with little tags, so this coral can be traced all the way back to the individual tree on which it was grown. After our tour, it's time to head back to the boat.
That coral just looks incredibly happy. It's taken over down there.
Back at the classroom, a local school group is visiting on a field trip to learn about coral reefs and how the coral farm works. Then they grab some snorkel gear to get a tour of one of the close transplant sites. It's shallow enough that they can see it from the surface. And they also get to see some of the local marine life. Coral reefs are an essential part of the tropical ocean ecosystem. Coral farming provides a new way to help repair reefs that have been damaged by storms or human impact. As the technology develops, perhaps other kinds of coral could be farmed as well. And these developments are made possible by people who study the life in the ocean and seek to protect it. It's a great story of success in the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan learns why fishermen are feeding the biggest fish in the world. But first, he meets some adorable undersea puppy dogs. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
It's summer in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and I'm boarding the dive boat Down Under with Captain Fran. We shove off from the dock and make our way out of Gloucester Harbor. Then we set a course north. We're heading to the Isles of Shoals, a small group of islands at the border of New Hampshire and Maine in the northeastern United States. It takes about an hour to cruise north as we take in the beautiful New England coastline. Finally, we reach Jimmy's Ledge at Duck Island and drop anchor in shallow water. From all directions, curious seals come to the boat to have a look.
Throw the anchor in. We don't want to scare them.
Like aquatic dogs, seals have a natural curiosity, but they're also cautious, and they have good reason to be. Seals used to be extremely plentiful on the shores of New England, so plentiful that fishermen felt they were a nuisance, eating way too many fish. As more and more fishing boats took to the waters and the catches of haddock, flounder, and codfish began to decline, the fishermen blamed the seals. All over New England, a seal hunt began, just to reduce their numbers. Massachusetts even issued a bounty system. They actually paid people to go out and kill seals, not for meat or hides or oil, just to get rid of them. By the time seals finally got protection under the Marine Mammal Protection Act in 1973, they were virtually gone from New England. The gray seal, formerly known to breed as far south as Cape Cod, had been virtually exterminated from U.S. waters with only small populations surviving in eastern Canada. Seals were also the primary food of apex predators like the great white shark. Once there were no more seals, there were no more sharks. Probably a blessing for fishermen at the time who were terrified of sharks. Now, after more than 40 years of protection, seals in New England have made a fantastic comeback. Here at the Isles of Shoals, gray seals pop their heads above water all around the boat. And this season's generation of adolescents, born only 6 to 7 months ago, are playful and curious. As the summer water in New England is in the mid-60s, I don't need a dry suit. My 7mm full wetsuit should be more than enough protection.
That's realistic right there. Can't kick anything on. There we go.
I drop into the green water and head to the bottom, barely 20 feet below the boat. The key to interacting with a seal is to pique its curiosity so it wants to come and check you out. Seals are way too fast to chase, and that's illegal. They can hear you coming 100 yards away, so you can't sneak up on them either. To the seals, cameraman Tim and I are bumbling, noisy, flailing bubble blowers. But because we are so utterly ridiculous underwater, the seals actually find us interesting. So my trick is to look like I'm doing something really cool. Something so interesting, in fact, that a seal just has to come check it out. Since summer in New England means murky, plankton-filled water, the visibility's not that great. So the seals have to come pretty close to see what we're doing. Only the adolescents are curious. The adults have much more important things to do. First, they make quick passes to check us out. But it doesn't take long for one of the young seals to muster the courage to come over for a close look at me. He's first interested in my fins. But once he feels my soft neoprene wetsuit, he wants to know more. Seals investigate with their mouths. I'm not worried about being bitten. This is just his way of learning. Meanwhile, another seal is checking out cameraman Tim, doing pretty much the same thing. Like undersea puppy dogs, the seals are curious and completely non-aggressive. Their curiosity extends to things beyond divers. A lobster trap on the sea floor has a rope that leads up to a buoy on the surface. The seals play endlessly with the rope. Many times I fear that this young seal will become entangled and need to be rescued. Yet, time after time, she manages to untangle herself and swim away. Down at the bottom of a gully where this lobster trap is sitting, the water is cold. Cold enough that I wish I had worn my dry suit. It's freezing! Even though I'm shivering, I hang in there a little longer because the seals are so fun to watch. But eventually I get low on air and it's time to head up.
Woo! The surface water's so nice and warm, 63 degrees, perfect for my 7 mil wetsuit. But the seals are hanging out on the bottom, 40 feet down, and it's 48 degrees down there. I was freezing my butt off. But the seals were awesome.
Six months later, it's winter in New England, and I have just arrived on the quaint, sleepy island of Nantucket. Nantucket is a small island in Massachusetts, south of Cape Cod. Off the west end of Nantucket is an even smaller island called Muskeget. This tiny, uninhabited, and privately owned island happens to be home to the southernmost breeding colony of gray seals. I've been invited to join a team of researchers working with gray seals at Muskeget Island. We board a couple small boats and head out on a perfect, calm day. It's bitterly cold. The surface of the ocean actually has ice forming on it, but the sun is shining and it's not too windy. Only perfectly calm conditions allow reaching Muskeget at this time of the year. I would much rather be doing this in the summer, but alas, gray seals give birth to their pups in the middle of the harshest time of the year. Within 30 minutes, our team reaches the sandy shore of Muskeget. We have permission from the island owner to go ashore, and the team has permits from NOAA to approach the seals for their research. Even I had to get a special permit to join them. The seals like to come here to have their pups because it's secluded and safe. They give birth in the winter because the water is too cold for sharks. Everywhere I look, there are moms nursing their pups. The pups are pretty much the cutest animals you will ever see. Little white fuzzballs laying helplessly on the sand. While the pup is snoozing, his mom might wander off to socialize. If she doesn't come back soon enough, he cries for her. But when she does finally come back, it's time for some milk. A pup receives only 3 weeks of care from its mother, and that's it. Then the pup is on its own. It will shed its baby fur and learn to catch fish. To accomplish that, gray seal pups feast on the richest milk in the world, up to 60% fat. Compare that to cow's milk, which is under 4% fat. Some of them don't make it. The big males, up to 800 pounds, come here to mate, and they are not patient. On the beach, a female is protecting her pup, but a pair of males are waiting for a good time to make a move. The larger male tries to sneak up to her, but she's having none of it. She is not ready to mate until her pup is weaned. Being patient is difficult. As another hopeful male looks on, the pair of males begins to fight. If they can't have the female, they can at least figure out who's more likely to get her. The vanquished has learned his lesson. A few hours later, the big bull has found a different female who seems a little more receptive. And again, another bull is watching, hoping to steal her away. He has little chance given how charming and persuasive the larger bull is. nobody will ever accuse seals of being very romantic. Eventually, the female succumbs to his charms. Males are known to crush the pups while trying to mate with a female. Most pups learn quickly to stay out of the way. In the more than 40 years since seal hunting stopped in New England, gray seal populations have undertaken a slow recovery. But now, with more and more females producing a new pup every year, the numbers of seals are really starting to climb. Mike Jack, Jennifer Johnson, and Beth Josephson from NOAA are trying to learn about the rate of population growth. They're doing annual aerial surveys to count pups using a drone. By flying up the beach and taking pictures at regular intervals with a high-resolution camera, they can get a good assessment each year of the growth in the population. What they have learned is that the seals are on the rebound. But it's not necessarily good news for everyone. Private pilot Aaron Knight shot some video from his airplane that illustrates the issue. Seals are taking over Cape Cod beaches. People are starting to worry about the impact on the beaches, the fish populations, and something you might not expect: great white sharks. The recovery of the seals has contributed to the recovery of their greatest predator. But while it's possible this could lead to a shark attack at one of the beaches, the sharks seem to be focused very specifically on eating seals. Some local residents say that the sharks are not eating enough seals to control the population, and the seals are becoming a big problem. Do the seals need to lose their protected status? That is a battle which is almost certainly coming. But the good news is that gray seals are back. A species which had almost vanished from the United States has recovered, thanks to more than 40 years of protection. For anyone who's ever had the chance to see a fluffy gray seal pup, or scuba dive with an inquisitive and playful adolescent, this can be nothing but great news. Let's face it, there's something wonderful about an animal so adorable and curious as a gray seal. The whale shark is the largest shark in the world. Growing longer than a school bus, the whale shark survives by filter feeding small fish and plankton from the water. At the Georgia Aquarium, I saw how these massive animals are fed by hand from a small boat. I never thought I would see this in the wild. But 9,000 miles from the Georgia Aquarium in the Philippines, something amazing is happening. It takes me 2 days of travel, but I fly to the city of Dumaguete on the island of Negros.
I made it!
I'm picked up by Atlantis Dive Resort, where I'll be staying for a week of exciting diving. I get a ride back to the resort in a jeepney, basically a fancy bus.
I'm here!
I arrive at the beachfront Atlantis Resort. Dive boats ready for action. The grounds and pool are gorgeous, but I'm not here for the pool. The next morning, I'm back on the jeepney for a day trip adventure. We drive to the ferry terminal.
Well, we're taking the ferry to Cebu so we can go see some whale sharks. Hopefully this ferry can hold our giant bus. We'll find out.
They back the jeepney onto the ferry along with a bunch of cars and motorcycles, and we're on our way to Cebu Island, a short 30-minute ride. Then everyone drives off the ferry, and it's another half hour to the town of Oslab. The water around Oslab is clear and blue, and inhabited by giant sharks. At the Welcome Center, we encounter a huge number of people. As many as 1,000 people show up here every day for a glimpse of the whale sharks. After a briefing, everyone stands around waiting for their group number to be called. Just offshore, the larger boats with the tourists are lined up in rows. As I wait my turn, I can see that the larger boats are not very big.
Just waiting with 1,000 other people to see a whale shark. I'm not sure that my camera is going to fit in that boat.
Soon our group number is called and the Blue World team boards a boat.
I think this camera might sink the boat, you guys.
Over here, over here.
Marty, go real easy on that bulkhead connector. Well, this is the craziest whale shark trip I've ever been on.
We paddle out to join the rest of the boats in line. Feeders in small boats parade the sharks in front of the tourists by doling out food. I put on my mask, fins, and snorkel and hop over the side. In the Philippines, I've just hopped into the water with whale sharks. Usually I have to chase whale sharks, swimming as hard as I can to keep up. But here, they bring them right past me. The feeders paddle with one hand and toss krill into the water with the other. They lead the sharks back and forth in front of the tourists. It's odd to be able to easily position myself in front of a whale shark to see how it feeds by gulping enormous volumes of water. Being a filter feeder, the whale shark is harmless, even though it's huge. There are 8 whale sharks here, wild animals, but happy to accept some food in exchange for posing for pictures. I used to joke about chumming for whale sharks, but this really is chumming for whale sharks, and they love it. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Yeah, this is kind of cool, but feeding the wildlife is never a good idea. And you're right. But on the other hand, it was not that long ago that whale sharks were hunted and killed for food and fins in the Philippines. In Oslab, a handful of whale sharks may have become somewhat dependent on people for food. But they're also acting as ambassadors for their species, allowing 1,000 people every day to actually see and swim with a real whale shark in the ocean. And in my experience, this causes people to fall in love with whale sharks, which in the long run is in the best interest of sharks everywhere. So, in the big picture, I honestly see more good than bad in this. People are not allowed to touch or harass the sharks, and the sharks come of their own free will.
This thing is absolute proof that sharks are good for tourism. They're definitely better alive than finned and turned into soup.
Given the number of people in the water, I'm pretty impressed at how smoothly the whole operation runs. It's fairly organized and a lot of fun. These big, harmless sharks will convert anyone that can float into a shark lover.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan travels to Egypt, where he visits the pyramids by camel and dives the enchanted waters of the Red Sea. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The Red Sea is known to divers all over the world as one of the places you absolutely must visit. It has a reputation for clear water and absolutely breathtaking reefs. So cameraman Todd and Bill are joining me in Egypt for a Red Sea dive trip. And if you're going all the way to Egypt, you really ought to see the pyramids. So, as our first adventure, we grab a cab to Giza on the outskirts of Cairo, where we do the tourist thing and take a horse and buggy to a place where we can try riding camels. Clearly, cameraman Todd is not an experienced camel rider. Then our guides lead us out into the desert.
Riding camels to the pyramids.
I've seen a million pictures of the pyramids in my life, but I never expected I would get to see them in person. As we ride closer and closer, their true size becomes visible. Walking around the grounds, it's hard to believe that people built these completely by hand. We visit the Sphinx, which is very impressive and popular. It's crowded. And then later that night, we walk around Cairo to check out the local scene. But then, some bad news.
So, due to some problems with Egyptian customs, we missed our flight from Cairo down to Marsalam, but it's okay because instead we're driving across Egypt from Cairo to Marsalam, 7 hours of sightseeing, and it's gonna be fabulous. Oh, and we have no air conditioning.
Our dive boat embarks from Marsalam, 630 kilometers, that's 450 miles from Cairo. We hire a driver and begin a drive across the desert. Todd and Bill are making the most of it while our driver focuses on the road. We pass a lot of wind turbines. It's nice to see Egypt using their substantial wind to make electricity. After a while, we reach the coast and drive a road where the mountains meet the Red Sea, and it's starkly beautiful. Finally, 9 hours after we left Cairo, we reach our dive boat at the marina in Marsalam. We board the Sea Wolf for a week of diving the remote southern waters of the Red Sea. Because the boat is not full, I get my own cabin, so I can unpack all my gear everywhere. The next morning, we depart for our adventure, sailing out of the marina, past shallow reefs, and out into blue water.
We're heading south to the very southern end of Egypt to find some of the most pristine reefs in the Red Sea.
It's a few hours before we reach our first dive site. The crew puts an inflatable in the water to help tie up the boat. They're securing the boat to Elphinstone Reef, a famous dive site. Rather than use anchors, which damage coral, the boat is tied to a mooring, which is permanently attached to the reef. The captain maintains the Sea Wolf in position while they get it tied up. Reefs in this part of the Red Sea rise to within a meter of the surface from depths of about 30 meters. These tall reefs are called bommies. Before our dive, we get a briefing, which is where they tell you all the exotic things they've ever seen at the site that you will probably never see. And of course, some local conditions and currents. Then it's time to suit up. I hit the water, followed by Todd and Bill, and the first thing we see in the clear blue water is jellyfish. These are moon jellies, harmless to people and beautiful to film. Before we even get below the surface, a pod of bottlenose dolphins comes over to check us out. They aren't really interested in playing with us, but they stick around for a few minutes. They're accompanied by an oceanic white-tipped shark. Ever wondered what it looks like when a dolphin poops? Well, here you go. That was awesome. Once the dolphins wander off, we sink down to the reef, and I can't believe the colors. The Red Sea is known for gorgeous soft corals in pastel colors, and this is certainly no disappointment. As I swim along the wall of coral, I am just taking in how beautiful these reefs are. These lush reefs also provide the ideal habitat for tons of small fish. Fish called anthias are everywhere. Their colors, orange, pink, and purple, almost mimic the colors of the soft coral. Everywhere I go, I swim through clouds of these little fish. In the overhangs, there are schools of glassfish. These reefs are extremely healthy and vibrant, and everywhere I swim, there are anthias by the millions. Some of the coral on this reef is actually a mustard-colored hydroid called fire coral. It's not a true coral. If you look closely, you can see what looks like hairs. It may look soft and fuzzy, but fire coral is bad news if you rub your skin against it. Those hairs are stingers, and believe me, this stuff is no fun at all. There are not many large animals around, but I find a white-tip reef shark resting on the sand under an overhang. Nearby, a dead surgeonfish with a bite out of it is jammed in the reef. It was the victim of a hungry moray eel, which no doubt bit the fish, but couldn't manage to pull it back into its den. A moon jelly has drifted over to the reef where a pair of damselfish are nibbling on it. The reef is a bad place for a jelly. As we rise to the surface at the end of the dive, we come across a school of fusilier feeding on plankton. Until something frightens them. Finally, it's time to get out of the water. Woo! Soon, the captain is moving the boat to our next dive site. For our second Red Sea dive, we will dive from an inflatable because we're going to a spot that the big boat can't reach. We have to time our water entry carefully so we all roll together and drift with the current to the reef. But the reward is an even more spectacular reef. This particular spot has tons of reef swim-throughs. Todd, Bill, and I have a blast swimming into them and exploring. They feel a little bit like caves. They're formed when reefs grow together above, like a canopy in a forest. But there are tons of openings to let in light and allow divers to leave, so this is not cave diving. I call them coral caverns. Still, swimming through these passages with shafts of light twinkling around me is a surreal experience. On the sand outside the coral caverns, a blue-spotted stingray is feeding. He digs into the sand and vacuums out worms and clams. Stingrays have a stinger on their tail used for defense. After a few minutes, we start making our way back to the boat. At the top of the reef, we find a hawksbill sea turtle looking for something to eat. Hawksbills eat things that most animals could never digest, like sponges, crinoids, and, in this case, soft coral. It doesn't look particularly appetizing. Finally, we surface at the inflatable. As the sun goes down, I reflect upon the day. The reefs of the Red Sea are truly astonishing, and they definitely live up to their reputation. I can hardly wait to see what they look like on a night dive. Nobody's quite sure how the Red Sea got its name, but if you look underwater, the reason might be the abundance of color on the reefs. The Red Sea is on every scuba diver's bucket list. Todd, Bill, and I head to Egypt for the trip of a lifetime to dive the Red Sea. We board the liveaboard dive boat Seawolf and set out on a voyage of adventure. Our dives are spectacular. We see dolphins, sea turtles, and stingrays, not to mention colorful reefs and breathtaking coral caverns. But once the sun goes down, we're ready to see what's happening on the reefs at night. Cameraman Bill and I suit up for a night dive.
You would think that night diving would be scary, but believe it or not, once you get down there, it's a lot of fun. Woohoo!
Bill and I hit the water to go see what we can find on the reef after dark. Immediately, we notice a lot of plankton in the water. Plankton comes up from the depths at night, so the animals that feed on plankton also get active at night, like the moon jelly catching plankton in its short tentacles. A small school of fish is scurrying around grabbing plankton. The coral polyps down on the reef open up at night to catch plankton too. A basket star spreads its net of arms into the current to catch plankton. These animals are super sensitive to light. As I come in close with my video camera, the basket star begins to fold its arms up. During the day, these animals curl up into a tiny ball and hide in the reef. Speaking of hiding in the reef, most reef fish are diurnal, meaning they're active during the day. At night, they sleep. A parrotfish is catching some Z's. Without eyelids, the fish may look awake, but it's not. A lizardfish looks ready to pounce, but not really. Watch for the eyes to move. There, now my video lights are waking it up. Lionfish are typically the most active during the day, but they are opportunistic. They've been known to hunt by divers' lights. A sea urchin is combing the surface of the sand for food, protected by its venomous spines. This is a nocturnal animal, active at night. It buries itself in the sand and hides during the day. Also roaming the sand, another nocturnal animal, a red nudibranch called a Spanish dancer. This nudibranch, the size of a shoe, is basically a snail without a shell. And it has a hitchhiker, a tiny imperial shrimp hanging on for a free ride and picking the sand for food as the Spanish dancer cruises along. Nearby, on the reef, one of the nocturnal reef predators has come out. An octopus eyes me suspiciously, unsure if I'm to be trusted. I hold really still and try not to present a threat. The octopus changes color to match the reef and goes hunting. The octopus has amazing camouflage capabilities, able to change not just color, but also skin texture from smooth to wrinkled as it moves over different parts of the reef. Sometimes it moves with jet propulsion, swimming up into the water over the reef to look for a good place to land for hunting. Then it proceeds to move along the reef, sticking its 8 arms into different holes and cracks, trying to grab something that might make a good dinner, like a fish or a crab. No place is very safe from an octopus. Finally, the octopus has grabbed a crab. With the crab tightly held in its arms, the octopus squirts its way to a private place to eat its meal. The Red Sea at night. A moray eel slithers its way through the reef searching for food. Sleeping fish tend to hide in holes in the reef. But the moray eel is perfectly designed to reach into these hiding places and grab fish that never see the moray coming. Still, it's not as easy as it sounds. Not every hole has a fish, and lots of fish get away. Sometimes, though, you get lucky. A fish sleeping in plain sight. As much as it struggles, this fish is not going to get away. The teeth of the moray are shaped like needles and point backwards into its mouth. Like the barbs on a fish hook, they prevent pretty much anything from escaping. This fish is dinner. Night diving is always fascinating. I don't think I've ever had a bad night dive, and the Red Sea certainly hasn't disappointed me when it comes to night diving action. An octopus hunting and a moray catching a fish were certainly the highlights of the dive, and that shows that you never know what you'll see when you drop into the water and have a look. At night especially, it's an amazing blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan meets the manatees of Florida. But first, he visits the amazing island of Bonaire to dive with his whole family in the first ever bird family dive adventure. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
Scuba diving has defined my life for 30 years. You could say that I'm in love with the ocean and the creatures that live there. I'm at home in the underwater world. My wife Christine and I have been diving together since we met at a dive club meeting. Ever since our kids were born, we've longed to share this underwater world with them. In 2013, our daughter Elise was old enough to get certified to dive. She took her class with instructor Kat Apps.
4, right? Because that was our penalty.
In 2017, our son Liam got certified to dive with instructor Scott Reed. Both of them learned to dive in the cold waters of New England, where we have thick wetsuits, big weight belts, and very limited visibility.
So this winter, it's time for a family diving trip. When it comes to family diving, there's no place better than Buddy Dive Resort in Bonaire.
Bonaire is a territory of the Netherlands, located in the southern Caribbean Sea, just off the coast of Venezuela. It's known as one of the best scuba diving destinations in the Caribbean. With warm, clear water, healthy reefs, and almost no current, Bonaire is the perfect place to take our kids on their first tropical diving trip. February school vacation is an awesome time to hit the airport to escape winter. Through the miracle of air travel, we soon land in tropical Bonaire.
We landed in Bonaire!
Yeah, we're in Bonaire.
We're here.
Then we head on over to Buddy Dive, an oceanfront luxury resort catering specifically to scuba divers. Our first morning, we get a quick introduction to the facilities from Dive Operations Manager Augusto Montbrun. Soon we'll be diving. But first things first, we review the marine park rules, the most important of which is to not touch anything or break any coral.
Buoyancy, buoyancy, buoyancy.
And
You won't
buoyancy.
break anything if your buoyancy is under control.
And with buoyancy in mind, our first dive will be a checkout dive.
We're heading to the dive shop. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do is for our first dive, we're just gonna go out in the shallows here over the sand, like 15 feet deep. And we're just gonna practice our buoyancy skills so that we have our buoyancy and our weight all worked out before we go out on the coral. Okay? All right, let's do it.
The dive shop is right on the water, so we can do a dive right off the end of the dock. The kids haven't been diving in a couple months, so I'm curious to see if they can remember how to assemble all their gear correctly. I'm impressed. They do it like pros. Once we're sure that all their stuff is right, Christine and I get our gear set up. And now for the fun part.
I'm gonna head to the end of the dock. Sounds good.
You guys giant striding?
Yep.
Okay.
A giant stride off the end of the dock is a super fun way to start any dive. Elise goes first.
You okay?
Okay, Liam.
After Liam, Christine hits the water and we're off. Sinking 20 feet down to the sandy bottom, I first demonstrate a buoyancy exercise for the kids to practice. They adjust the amount of air in their buoyancy compensators to get neutrally buoyant. When you're really good at it, you can hover without using your hands or feet. With our buoyancy exercises complete, we decide to spend the rest of the dive having a look around in the shallows at the edge of the reef. There's a flounder in the sand, a fish wonderfully adapted to hide in plain sight. A colony of garden eels poke out of their holes, plucking plankton from the water as it passes. And near an isolated brain coral, a barracuda is just hanging out with its toothy mouth wide open. This is a very special brain coral, and as I will discover in the days to come, this barracuda comes to this brain coral every morning. Elise is fascinated watching the action, and once the big fish gets used to us, it opens its mouth again. Tiny cleaner fish are swimming into the barracuda's mouth and gills, picking off parasites in dead skin. They give the barracuda a good grooming. The cleaner fish live around this brain coral, providing a cleaning station for any fish that might need their services. Soon the kids are getting chilly, so we turn and swim back to the dive shop.
That was awesome. Woohoo!
In the afternoon, we join a boat dive to explore a reef on Bonaire. It's only a 10-minute ride from the dock to reach Bonaire, a small uninhabited island which is a protected national park. The reefs are pristine. We suit up for a dive on a beautiful reef right below the boat. Boat diving is so convenient.
All right, you guys, are you ready?
Ready?
All right, well, let's have fun, and remember, watch the buoyancy.
Okay.
All right. All right, you guys, let's do it.
Finally, the bird family is scuba diving on a gorgeous Caribbean reef together. We pass the mooring block. All the dive sites use permanent moorings, so there are no anchors thrown on the reef. That means the reef is in beautiful shape with lots of healthy coral. There are ginormous tube sponges. A French angelfish is one of the few fish that can digest the tough tissue of sponges. A big school of blue tangs is moving across the reef, feeding on algae. They're critical to the health of the coral because without them, the algae would take over and smother the coral. A parrotfish is also snacking on the algae. We head down the reef behind the dive master, and soon he's found us a special treat. A yellow blob sitting on an orange sponge. That blob is a frogfish. It stays perfectly still, acting like a sponge itself, flicking a lure to attract smaller fish to eat. Soon it's time to head back to the boat. At 15 feet, we do a safety stop for 3 minutes. The purpose of this is to reduce the pressure on our bodies slowly, so nobody develops decompression sickness. Then it's up the ladder to the boat.
That was awesome!
What he said!
Bonaire is an arid place with the terrain dominated by cactuses. The eastern side of the island has strong trade winds. The western side of the island, away from the wind, has calm conditions, perfect for diving. Popular places for shore diving are marked with a yellow rock, indicating the name of the dive site. Shore diving is really popular on Bonaire, so we decide to give it a try. Dive master Tina Wall from Buddy Dive takes us down south to a dive site called Invisibles.
And as we get closer, once it's deep enough and we know where the buoy is, we'll descend, because that's our best marker for our entry and exit point.
All right, guys, stop.
We have to be very careful getting in. The rocks are uneven and slippery. We swim out until the water is deep enough to submerge. Then we head across the sand to reach the reef. Tina leads the way, and with that shirt, she's very hard to lose. We find a venomous scorpion fish sitting very still. My camera lights make it look really colorful, but without lights, it blends in and looks like a rock. Hiding near a soft coral, there's a trumpet fish. They hang vertically head down in the water to look like part of the coral. It's an effective way to ambush prey. But when it realizes that it's been spotted, the fish abandons its position and makes a break for it. Only to try to fool me again. We turn our dive and start meandering back towards the beach. Along the way, we come across a couple intense characters. On one side of a rock, a male sailfin blenny, furiously putting on a display designed to impress a female. Less than a meter away, another male, also intent on getting that female's attention. As they both put on their best moves, the female comes to check them both out. And frankly, she's not very impressed. They both get the cold fin. But that only causes them to intensify their competition, with each male trying to out-display the other one. I leave the sailfin blennies to their antics and follow a goatfish for a while. Goatfish have two whiskers called barbels under the chin, which provides a goat-like appearance. These barbels are chemically sensitive. They can basically smell things like worms in the sand. When it smells something yummy, the goatfish dives right in for a snack. We've made our way back to the beach and surfaced to swim to shore. After the dive, we pile back into the van and head back to Buddy Dive. We have one more adventure for the day.
Yeah, definitely.
The sun is setting over Klein Bonaire, but we're not getting ready for bed. Once the sun has gone down, it's time for a night dive. And this will be Liam's first night dive ever. If he's nervous, he's hiding it well. We jump off the dock into the dark water. With our dive lights blazing, we set off to the reef. At night, the colors are brighter without the strong blue cast from the water. Purple tube sponges look like something out of a science fiction movie. And on the sponges, an alien-looking arrow crab. Nearby, a parrotfish is sleeping inside a bubble. It blows the bubble to disguise its scent from nocturnal predators like moray eels. Suddenly, a large shadow, and then a pair of fish more than a meter long. These are tarpon. Normally, they would not come this close to divers. But the tarpon here at Buddy Dive have learned to hunt using the divers' flashlights, so they follow us around for the whole dive. The fish are so shiny that they look like they're made of aluminum foil. A night dive in the company of these huge fish is a real treat. Our trip to Bonaire has been epic. Our whole family dove together for the week, and my kids got to experience a little bit of why I love the ocean so much. We dove from the shore and from a boat, during the day and at night, in the diver's paradise of Bonaire. And the question isn't, did we have fun? The question is, when are we coming back? The town of Crystal River in Florida is famous around the world for its warm water springs. During the winter, these springs fill with the world's largest aggregation of manatees. Todd, Zach, and I have arrived not just for manatees, but to meet up with a very special kid. Elizabeth is a 7-year-old swimming prodigy. From an early age, she took to the water like a fish.
You can do it.
In fact, when she was only 16 months old, she could swim across a swimming pool by herself, becoming a YouTube sensation.
But she's never been swimming in the wild with a large aquatic animal. So today we're going to change all that and take her to meet one of Florida's most famous residents.
Elizabeth and her dad Adam are meeting me in the town of Crystal River for an underwater adventure.
Elizabeth! Hey, great to meet you.
Hi.
Are you ready to go swim with some manatees?
Yeah.
Let's go!
Our guides to the manatees are Captain Stacy Dunn and her husband Mike. We load the pontoon boat, and then Captain Stacy explains the rules for manatee interactions.
All right, Elizabeth, have you done your homework on manatees?
No.
With Mike at the helm, we leave the dock and slowly make our way through a series of canals to Kings Bay. We pass lots of no-wake signs reminding us that the area is filled with vulnerable manatees. Manatees swimming just under the surface can be injured or killed by propellers, so we go very slowly, keeping an eye peeled for manatees near the boat. We pass quite a few along the way. Soon we arrive at the mouth of Three Sisters Spring, one of the best places to see manatees. This spot is no secret. There are 5 boats here and 20 people already in the water. But the swimmers can't go past the ropes, giving the manatees some personal space. From the air, we can see that there are at least 200 animals here, most of which are resting behind the rope close to the warm water coming from the mouth of the spring. Cameraman Todd and I hop into the water.
Going very smooth and quiet.
Due to a recent cold snap in Florida, the water's only in the mid-60s. Next, it's Elizabeth's turn, and I'm a little worried that the water's going to be too cold for her. She has a wetsuit, so that will help. As it turns out, she handles the cold just fine, but the murky water over where we anchored the boat freaks her out a little, so her dad hops in the water to help out. We move to a shallow spot where Elizabeth can stand up and get her bearings. She's using a pool noodle to float, which is actually something that the tour operators are asking people to do. And this is the reason. The water is shallow, and manatees go under people all the time, so good flotation keeps people from accidentally kicking them. Elizabeth grabs her noodle, and off we go to the clear water near the spring. We hang out together in the clear water until a manatee comes over to check us out. These are huge but gentle animals. As long as we don't bother them, they don't mind us being in the water at all. West Indian manatees are largely solitary animals that live in shallow coastal areas around Florida and the Caribbean. They feed on seagrasses, so in the past they were often called sea cows. Florida is at the northern end of their range, so in winter, when the ocean gets cold, they go looking for warmth. Fortunately, the water spilling out of Florida's springs is a constant 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Manatees swim up rivers from the ocean to reach the springs. At the springs, they mostly just rest and wait for the weather to get warmer. But there's almost nothing to eat. So a tree leaf that lands on the water is a welcome snack. Some of the manatees are quite skinny. They are not getting enough to eat here. During the day, some of the manatees will swim out into the river to find food, but many of them just can't handle the cold and stay hunkered down at the springs. After a manatee has been lounging in shallow fresh water for a while, it may develop a coat of algae on its back. The fish love this delicious salad bar, and the manatees don't seem to mind getting rid of the algae. Because manatees are mammals, they have lungs and breathe air. So every few minutes, a manatee will rise to breathe once or twice before settling down and going back to sleep, holding its breath. Their nostrils feature perfectly watertight valves, so they don't have to worry about water in the nose. But it's not easy sharing these shallow waters with boats. Many manatees have terrible injuries from close encounters with propellers, and these are the ones that survived. Around 75 manatees are killed by boats every year in Florida. It's not all bad news, though. Manatees are doing much better than they were 20 years ago. With strong protection in place, their numbers have tripled since 1994. Elizabeth and I are having a great time hanging out with the manatees. But now we're both freezing, and it's time to warm up. So we say goodbye to our aquatic friends. By getting the chance to see manatees up close, I hope Elizabeth will become as enchanted with marine life as I am, and become another advocate for the protection and appreciation of marine life all around the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan searches a Florida cave for a rare blind crayfish. Then he takes his whole family to Australia on a search for the world's most magnificent seahorse. But first, the science of hammerhead sharks. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The underwater world is full of mysteries to be solved. One such mystery involves the great hammerhead shark. Divers rarely see great hammerheads. They're known for being shy loners, unwilling to approach people. But a few years ago, divers began visiting a place near Bimini Island in the Bahamas, where great hammerheads have been caught by fishermen for years. They found a special place with lots of sharks. Over time, the sharks got used to divers and started coming in close for a snack, giving people an intimate look at the great hammerhead shark. I've been to Bimini several times, and I'm always amazed by how huge great hammerheads are. Not only does the head reach a meter or more wide, but the tall dorsal fin is a striking feature of this unique and majestic shark. And in spite of the aggressive appearance, great hammerheads almost never attack people. They much prefer to eat stingrays in the sand. But diving with great hammerheads has allowed divers to notice something unusual. The shark often swims tilted to the side at an angle. I also noticed this behavior in the Ocean Voyager exhibit at the Georgia Aquarium. My friend Andy Casagrande, one of Discovery Channel's primary Shark Week cinematographers, wanted to help investigate the mystery of the leaning hammerhead. He attached a GoPro camera to the huge dorsal fin of a great hammerhead to film the shark for an extended period of time. His amazing footage shed light on the behavior of these sharks, and it has to do with their anatomy. The hammerhead shark never stops swimming. But contrary to popular belief, many sharks do. Most species of sharks, like the lemon shark, can rest on the bottom and move water over their gills by simply gulping. Biologists call it buccal pumping. A few species of sharks, like the whale shark and the white shark, are known as obligate ram ventilators. They can only breathe by ramming oxygenated water into their gills through their mouths as they swim. If they stop swimming, they'll suffocate. The great hammerhead is an obligate ram ventilator and has to keep swimming all the time. Sharks such as the blue shark keep swimming all the time too, but for a totally different reason, because sharks sink if they stop swimming. Fish, including sharks, are heavier than water, so they sink. Bony fish have an organ called a swim bladder that they use to adjust their buoyancy. By adjusting how much gas is in its swim bladder, a fish can keep itself perfectly neutral so it doesn't sink or float. Since sharks have no swim bladder, they sink to the bottom when they stop swimming. But some sharks, like the blue shark, live in the open ocean where the bottom is thousands of feet below, where it's dark and cold. They can't rest on the bottom. So they've adapted to this environment by developing very large pectoral fins to act as airplane wings. As the shark cruises through the water, the fins provide lift to keep the shark aloft and prevent it from sinking into the dark, cold abyss. The bigger the pectoral fins, the more lift they provide, and the slower the shark can swim without sinking, which saves energy. The great hammerhead, on the other hand, has small pectoral fins and a big head called a cephalofoil. The cephalofoil seems to accomplish several things for the shark, including expanded vision, a larger surface area for electroreceptors, and additional front-end lift, like a mini wing. But it also has mass, and scientists think this mass, combined with small pectoral fins, is the reason that hammerheads are so much more maneuverable than other similarly sized sharks. But while those small pectoral fins help the shark turn quickly to catch prey, they have a disadvantage: not much lift. And this is where the tilted swimming comes in. Andy Casagrande's dorsal fin footage showed that when great hammerheads are on the move, they're almost always swimming at a tilted angle of more than 45 degrees. In 2015, Nicholas Payne, Gil Ioselevsky, and 5 other researchers got together to investigate this strange behavior. They put sensors on great hammerhead sharks to measure the roll angles. Then they used wind tunnel tests to model the effect and figured out what the sharks are doing. The sharks roll on their sides to use that huge dorsal fin as a wing and provide lift while swimming distances. It allows the shark to generate more lift, which means it can swim a bit slower without sinking and save energy. In fact, swimming tilted to the side saves the shark about 8% swimming effort. So, when the shark needs to go somewhere, it tilts to the side and saves energy. But when it needs to hunt, it swims straight up and down to take advantage of the increased maneuverability. The giant dorsal fin serves 2 purposes: a keel when upright and a wing when tilted. At this point, no other shark is known to use this technique, and it explains a mysterious habit that divers observed in great hammerhead sharks. Sometimes just being in the ocean creates new understanding of the life that lives there. As divers, our time in the ocean is fleeting, lasting just an hour or so per dive. But it affords us the opportunity to catch a glimpse of the lives of the animals that live there. This is one of the things that keeps me coming back over and over for my short glimpses into the blue world. It's a beautiful morning on the Swanee River. I'm back in Florida to explore some more of the caves that have made this part of the world famous. Our first stop is Amigo's Dive Shop, where my good friend Wayne Kennard has our tanks full and ready.
We're on an expedition today looking for a blind cave crayfish, which is a little albino crayfish that lives in the caves. It's very rare, but the cool thing is, it lives to be 200 years old.
It's only a half-hour drive from the shop to Little River Springs. This picture-perfect spring produces 55 million gallons of crystal-clear water every day. And it's home to the elusive cave crayfish.
This is my favorite part of diving, is when you get to carry your stuff.
We bring our tanks down to the water. Then, it's time to suit up for an adventure. Now, how does this thing go together? Finally, Todd, Zach, and I are ready to begin our dive. I'm really excited because I've never dove this cave before, but Zach and Todd have done it many times. At the entrance to the cave, Todd ties his reel to a steel pin specifically designed for cave divers. This line is extremely important for cave divers as it points the way out of the cave. A few hundred feet inside the cave, Todd ties his line off to the permanent guideline that we will follow. Soon we leave the cavern zone and head into a place of perpetual darkness. Since Zach is an expert on this cave, he leads the way. The walls of the cave show scratches from divers struggling forward in the high flow conditions. We're lucky that the flow is not too strong today. While Florida caves are not ornately decorated like caves in some other places, the erosion of the limestone creates an alien landscape full of interconnecting passages to explore. You never know what's around the next corner. Having fun filming each other as we swim further into the cave, keeping an eye out for the crayfish. Finally, Todd spots a blind cave crayfish. It looks like a miniature lobster, but since it lives its whole life in darkness, this crayfish has lost not only its sight, but its pigment, so it's a ghostly color. Mission accomplished. With the crayfish filmed and having reached 1/3 of our air supply, we turn and begin our trip back to the entrance. The way back is much easier because we just go with the flow. Back in the cavern zone, Todd removes his reel from the permanent line and spools it back up as we ascend. Up in the spring, we spend a little time filming the sunfish. Then I spot a really cool freshwater flounder, also known locally as a hog choker. Even in a tiny pool like this, there are cool things to find. We surfaced safely an hour after we started.
That was awesome!
Caves may seem devoid of life, but the cave crayfish is a perfect example of how life can adapt to virtually any environment in the blue world. I love seahorses, and I've filmed many different species all over the world. I've always wanted to see a leafy sea dragon, which is almost certainly the rarest, most spectacular seahorse in the world. They're only found in one place, the waters of southern Australia. It's summer vacation, and the whole family is joining me on a Blue World expedition to South Australia. The kids have never been on a flight this long. We're traveling to the other side of the world, from Boston all the way to Adelaide, with a stop in Dubai. It's 2 12-hour flights back to back.
Well, it took 30 hours, but we made it to Adelaide, South Australia.
Sleeping on a plane is difficult, so we're totally exhausted. But we still have to load our rental van and drive down to our rental house in Rapid Bay. Rapid Bay is a beautiful place located 100 kilometers south of Adelaide. We rented a house right on the ocean. It's windy and not that warm. It may be summer at home, but here in the southern hemisphere, it's winter. There's not much between Rapid Bay and Antarctica, except ocean. The next morning, we make a run up to Adelaide for scuba tanks. Then, it's over to the dive site, the Rapid Bay Jetty. The roads are a blast, even if I am in a minivan. But I have to remember to drive on the left. Well, I finally made it to the jetty here in Rapid Bay in South Australia, one of the best places in the world to find one of the rarest seahorses in the world, the leafy sea dragon. The jetty in Rapid Bay was originally built for loading limestone from the local quarry onto cargo ships. The quarry up on the hillside is still here, but no longer used. The original jetty fell into disrepair, but it was so popular with the locals for fishing that they spent $3 million building a new one just for recreation. It's popular with fishermen and divers. We meet up with Daniel Canaz, a local dive instructor. We take a quick walk down the jetty while Daniel explains the dive to me and Christine. Then, it's time for everyone to suit up. Christine and I are putting on our dry suits.
Dry suits are kind of a pain, but it beats being cold.
The kids, unfortunately, don't have dry suits yet, so they'll have to dive in wetsuits. But hey, they're kids, they can take it. The water's only 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 13 degrees Celsius. Chilly. It's time for a long walk down the jetty. Or should I say, a long walk off a short pier. Fortunately, when they built the jetty, they kept divers in mind, so there's a nice staircase right into the water. The wind is howling and the water is rough, but in we go. As we sink down, I'm a little disappointed by the visibility. We knew it would be cold, but we didn't count on a storm churning up the sediment. I can barely see Daniel ahead of me as we begin our search for leafy sea dragons. We're hunting in the seaweed because that's where their camouflage allows them to hide the best. After what seems like forever, we finally find one. In South Australia, we've found a leafy sea dragon in the murky water. This master of camouflage looks exactly like a drifting piece of seaweed within the seaweed garden on the ocean floor. Obviously, this is not an animal designed for speed. No seahorses are fast, but this one is positively sluggish with all those leafy projections. But who needs to be fast when you can blend in? Predators just don't see the leafy sea dragon. This sea dragon does use whatever speed it has to try to escape the glare of my bright lights. But once it figures out that I'm not going to hurt it, the sea dragon relaxes a little bit and allows me to get in for some close-ups. I don't even notice the cold water when I'm filming something awesome like this. Once we know how to find them, they're easier to spot. Elise finds a pair of smaller ones. These conditions can't be easy for the little sea dragons. With the kids in wetsuits, they get cold fairly soon, so we head back out of the water. The kids are cold, but excited. We hoof our gear back to the van. Shore diving is a lot of work. Now for our least favorite part. We came a long way for this little fish, but it was worth it. I've waited 20 years to see a leafy sea dragon. It's one of the weirdest, most camouflaged animals I've ever seen. a true wonder of the blue world.
Today on Blue World, the Bahamas Shark Fest. Jonathan goes night diving with lemon sharks. But first, tiger shark diving with guest star Coyote Peterson. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
Today I'm helping the Brave Wilderness team film the first episodes of their new series, Blue Wilderness. It will be hosted by Mark Vins, who's been producing Brave Wilderness with Coyote since the beginning. Their whole team has recently learned to dive, and this is their first big dive trip. Since they're new to diving and underwater filming, they came to me for some advice, and we decided to get together for a week-long dive adventure on my favorite dive boat, the Dolphin Dream. We have a lot planned for the week. Our first stop, tiger sharks. Our adventure begins in West End, Grand Bahama. We sail north across the Little Bahama Bank, a shallow area of mixed sand and reefs. It will take several hours to reach our destination, a large, shallow area called White Sand Ridge. Along the way, we have some time to relax, but it's not long before we stop for a warm-up dive. Mario, the Brave Wilderness cameraman, just got certified, and this will be his first dive since finishing his scuba class. Mark and Coyote have done a few dives, but they haven't been in the water in a while.
See, I've changed out my head attire from cowboy hat to youth-size beanie, maybe? I don't know, that's what it feels like. You look like a seal.
I hop in the water first to get some shots of Mark and Coyote jumping in. Coyote is going first, and I can tell he's a little nervous. Scuba is still new for him. But he does a perfect giant stride entry like a pro. We drop down to the bottom, and there isn't really very much to see, just some sand and a few soft corals. But that's not the point. Coyote, Mark, and Mario need to get comfortable in their scuba gear before we add sharks to the mix. Mark also has a brand new Gates housing to figure out. And Coyote has camera envy. Soon everyone is ready and we head back to the boat. We pull anchor and head to Tiger Beach, which isn't actually a beach at all. It's the unofficial nickname for a shallow, sandy place far from land where they chum for tiger sharks. As soon as we arrive, the crew starts chumming to begin the process of attracting sharks. Then Captain Jared gives the group a dive briefing.
That if you guys don't follow our suggestions for protocols and safe practice of diving, there's a very good probability that you will get bit. And from that, there is a very good probability that you will die about 6 hours from land and about 8 hours from actual medical care.
And after that cheerful speech, I have to reassure Mark and Coyote that they're going to be fine.
This is going to be so much fun. You're going to love this.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm hearing fun.
Yep.
Is it safe?
Well, yeah, it's pretty safe.
Pretty safe?
It's mostly safe.
Okay, mostly safe. What's the game plan? How do we stay safe?
So, we're going to wear gloves. Okay. Which keep your hands from looking like fish. Sure. And we're gonna wear hoods, so we have this sort of ninja look. Ninja. Yeah, it keeps the sharks from thinking of us as having any food.
Does that make the sharks intimidated that we're like ninjas, or is that for color?
That is just to keep us from looking like anything edible. And when we hit the water, we're gonna go straight down so we don't hang around the surface where prey would be. Okay. You know, we're gonna get down to the bottom, and once we're down there, they think of us as just something that lives in the ocean and something competing with them for some food. So they're gonna ignore you. You're gonna love it.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun.
Well, I'm excited. Coyote, how do you feel? You ready?
Got my giant camera rig ready, and I am 100% certain we're gonna get in the water and get some epic shots.
After an hour of chumming, the boat is surrounded by sharks.
So when we pulled up, we immediately had sharks, which is always a really good sign, but there's a great hammerhead down there, and I'm really hoping that it sticks around, because it is so rare to see a great hammerhead here. You guys coming down? It'll be awesome.
Awesome.
And I'll meet you on the bottom.
See you down there, buddy.
Down on the bottom, there's a lot of action. Already we have 3 species of sharks: Caribbean reef sharks, lemon sharks, and at least 1 nurse shark hanging around the chum box, plus about a zillion fish. Within a couple of minutes, Coyote and Mark are hitting the water, and things down below are in full swing. Then the first tiger shark shows up. And I'm pretty sure she just sneezed. And soon, the great hammerhead appears. This isn't just any great hammerhead. This is a friendly one that's been showing up at Tiger Beach a lot for the past 2 years. And they call her Patches for her patchy ventral coloration. Normally, hammerheads do not show up at Tiger Beach. Either they're afraid of the tiger sharks, or they're just too skittish around all the divers. But Patches is different. Patches is in fact so awesome, we're going to do an entire segment about her. The appearance of Patches and the tiger sharks means that we now have 5 species of sharks present on a single dive. And I'm pretty sure that Mario is super excited. I'm getting a kick out of watching Mark get comfortable with his new underwater camera, and I can tell he's in the zone where he's focusing on shots and his fear is gone. It's fun to be part of it and to see these guys falling in love with sharks right in front of my eyes. After an hour, we get a few last shots and then reluctantly head back to the boat. Nobody wants to get out of the water, but we're low on air. I can hardly wait to hear what they thought of the dive. But when I pop up, Mario has the camera ready and he wants to know what I thought of the dive.
5 species in 1 dive. I don't know if that's ever happened. To me, I mean, that's amazing.
As the sun sets, we're already looking forward to tomorrow, because things are about to get even more wild. The next morning, the boat is swarming with sharks. But we're doing a shark feed, so we have to jump into this mass of sharks and swim down quickly to the bottom. We hit the water and head over to the sandy area where the feed will take place. Coyote and I are first on the scene. Soon Houston arrives with the bait box. The sharks know the deal. They immediately come over and start circling, waiting for the free breakfast to start. Mark arrives with his camera ready. As Houston starts feeding, Mario, Mark, and Coyote are all keeping a safe distance, with cameraman Tim filming from behind them. As the feed goes on, more and more sharks come to the party. Coyote and Mark get more comfortable moving closer and closer to the action. Then the sharks come around to investigate. Mark has a close encounter of the sharky kind. But he handles it calmly, no problem. Coyote is getting right up close with his camera. And then Coyote has his own close encounter. And he recovers like a pro. This was not an act of aggression from the shark. It was just investigating Coyote to see if he had any food. You don't need to read sign language to understand what he's saying. That is one big tiger shark. At the end of the dive, we all head back to the boat to celebrate. We took the Brave Wilderness team shark diving, and Coyote didn't get bitten by anything. Mario and Mark got some valuable experience filming underwater for their new series, Blue Wilderness. And guess what? We're planning a bunch of upcoming collaborations between Blue World, Blue Wilderness, and Brave Wilderness. So stay tuned for more awesome underwater action in the Blue World. It's a beautiful evening as the sun sets behind the Dolphin Dream dive boat. But the Blue World and Brave Wilderness teams are just beginning to embark on our next Bahamas adventure. We've all traveled to West End, Grand Bahama for a week of epic diving. So far, it's been incredible. On our first few dives, we had encounters with 5 different shark species. There were huge tiger sharks, curious lemon sharks, reef sharks, nurse sharks, and of course, Patches, the famous hammerhead. The brave wilderness guys have gotten some great experience filming sharks underwater, and we've all had a fabulous time diving together.
So we've done a lot of shark diving on this show, and we've done a lot of night diving. But tonight, we're gonna combine the two into shark night diving just to see how many sharks we can find after dark. And I'm sure it's not gonna be scary at all.
As the sun dips below the horizon, we start suiting up.
Well, hopefully I'm gonna go find some sharks, and it'll be interesting to see if the blue wilderness guys have gotten eaten yet.
This is going to be a piece of cake.
On the bottom, we meet up with Mario from the Brave Wilderness team, who's currently surrounded by tiger sharks in the semi-darkness. As it gets darker, we'll be able to locate the boat by the bright lights on the stern. In the absence of sunlight, the colors of the reef really pop under our video lights. As darkness fully falls, basket stars unfurl and catch plankton with their tendril arms. Purple rope sponges don't do anything exciting, but they look cool. Even so, sharks are cooler, and there are lots of them. With the limited range of our lights, the sharks come and go into the darkness regularly, and it's pretty spooky. It's almost impossible to see the sharks until they're right on top of us. Cameraman Bill and I come across a resting lemon shark covered in remoras that look really annoying. I inch my way up close to the shark, trying not to spook her. While a few species of sharks can never stop swimming, most can, in fact, rest on the bottom and gulp water to breathe, a behavior known as buccal pumping. Biologists don't really know if sharks sleep. But these lights are really bright, so it seems plausible that this shark is really zonked out. I keep inching my way forward until I can get an awesome view of the teeth. Ever coughed in your sleep? Apparently sharks do too, and now she's awake and fully aware of 10,000 lumens of LED video lights in her face. Time to leave. Bill is annoyed that I scared the shark away, so now he has to find us another one. Look behind you, Bill! Mark and Mario have found another resting lemon shark, and they're getting even closer than I did. Wait a minute, is Mark petting the shark? Pretty impressive for guys that hadn't even dove with sharks 2 days ago. One bad idea leads to another. I'm gonna try that myself. I really think that sharks must sleep, because that seems like the best explanation for this shark putting up with being petted like a puppy. I think the other sharks are starting to get jealous. I decide to try the tonic immobility technique I learned with master shark handler Neil Harvey and gently rub the shark under the snout. But all I managed to accomplish is waking her up. On a shark night dive in the Bahamas, we spot a southern stingray foraging for food. Unfortunately, sharks eat stingrays. Bill and I watch as a chase begins. We'll never know how it ends. After an hour with the sharks in the dark, our scuba tanks are getting low, so it's time to make for the boat. As we ascend, the sharks circle below. We know they're not aggressive, but that doesn't make it any less unsettling. We do our safety stop on the descent line while keeping an eye on the sharks, and then we can get out.
Oh man, that was crazy. Did you see that thing?
I saw it all happen. It was amazing.
Man, so the lemon shark I thought it was sleeping.
Yeah, I did too.
And what happened?
I was filming the southern ray coming by. I was like, oh, look, nighttime life. Here we go. And the southern ray got close and closer, and all of a sudden, about 3 feet away, the shark woke up and just went right after it.
I went nuts.
Yeah.
I thought the shark was completely asleep, and as soon as that ray was anywhere near, man, boom!
Yeah.
It was like a big fight.
Yeah, they were chasing it. The ray was darting all around. Shark was swimming after it, all over the place.
Yeah,
Incredible.
and I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
They went off into the darkness, and we have no idea what happened, but wow, man, just when you think the shark is sleeping, not so much.
It was incredible.
That was cool.
Incredible.
Definitely worth that dive.
Yeah.
The nightlife in the ocean is always spectacular. Although it may seem scary, night diving's actually quite peaceful. It's one of my favorite ways to experience the blue world.